I want to welcome all of you here today to I don't know, I guess a first hybrid energy team training. Really want to thank Russ for trying to figure out how to get some training to our energy team, and we're really fortunate to have Kevin Brock with us today as a presenter, which you all introduce in just a minute. But we're going to keep this real informal. We're doing this on our meeting, GoToMeeting, so everybody has their cam on. I want everybody to mute themselves during the presentation, but we want to keep it informal and be able to ask questions. So Kevin's going to be pausing and asking for your questions, and you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question. If you have a hand raised, I can call on you to do that, but if you don't, you can just unmute and we'll play that as it goes. I think that'll work. If alternatively, if you don't want to talk and you want to type in a question, you can do that in the chat in your menu screen, and that's that may be in your menu bar, or it might be at the top of your screen, a little box that's the chat. So that's an alternative way, and we'll try to do that. But let's try to do that verbally if we can. So very good. We're recording this session, so we'll have it up on our website for future use. And so yeah, let me introduce the topic a little bit. So today we've got Kevin Brock, and he's going to be reviewing some online resources for energy management professionals, and this is focused on resources related to energy, and then specifically related to building energy uses. So there's so many resources out there, and this will be a great overview. Some of you back in time may have worked with Kevin before. We worked with him years ago. He worked with the Duke Energy Incentive Programs, and he worked with KEMA as a contractor. But Kevin's got over 35 years of experience in energy. Oops, I'm gonna mute somebody here. Hey, Dick. Kevin's got over 35 years of experience in engineering, consulting, building energy systems, energy conservation, and energy efficiency. So we've got the right person here. He's a native of Union County in South Carolina, holds a bachelor's in marine engineering from the U.S. Naval Academy, and he has a master's in sustainable studies from Lenore-Ryan, where he is currently teaching. So we're really happy to have him here today. Kevin enjoys some music, so he has a lot of banter going back with Russ on this too. So so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks to all of you for taking your time this morning to explore some energy resources. I was talking to Terry and Russ as we were planning what we wanted to do for your training. And when I was a practicing engineer in the trenches, most of that time over in Waynesville with Reese Nolan and McElrath, a mechanical electrical engineering design firm. You know, you're down in the trenches, you're crunching the numbers, you're doing what you're doing every day, and you lose sight sometimes of the bigger picture, the global picture. So we're gonna talk about some resources out there that might not help you every day in your day-to-day work, but that are important to provide context, not only for us as professionals, but for our clients, and also to provide information to help us be better advocates for public policy in the energy sector in general, and specifically as it relates to building energy use. Terry also mentioned that I'm teaching at Lenore-Ryan in their Master's in Sustainability Studies program. The course I teach is called Sustainable Energy and Materials Use in the Built Environment. So this lecture was pretty easy to put together because I kind of cobbled it from what I'm teaching my graduate students right now to sort of help me get through this. So just sort of hang on here. Again, it's informal. If you have a question, speak out. I'll give you opportunity for you to answer questions. So let's take a little journey here. We're going to start with a little music because we have to have a theme song. Okay. All right.
So Judy Thompson says she saw them in 1974, Tower of Power.
Yeah, in Oakland. They're Oakland-based band. That's the great Roger Smith on the keyboard there, on the Hammond organ. Incredible music. But the theme is simple. There's only so much oil in the ground. Sooner or later, there won't be much around. Tell that to your children as they're riding around downtown that there's only so much oil in the ground. I use that as a theme song with my graduate students and introduce them to band that a lot of us at least have heard in the past. A lot of us oldsters. Tower of Power is still touring today, so they're a great band. So I just wanted to open up with that little light musical note, and hope you enjoyed that. So we're going to move on. The first topic I want to spend a few minutes on, I retired in January of 2020 from a company called DNV, which is based in Norway. And DNV is the company that I started working for, called Kima. And after a couple of corporate mergers, we all know how that works in the corporate world. The company is now called DNV. They are heavily involved in the energy supply chain, from extraction through transportation and to end use on the demand side. So it's important to their business to see what's going to happen in the future and what the energy picture will look like in, say, 2050. So every year in the fall, they publish their energy transition outlook. And it's a report that's full of data and projections. And I find that useful, and I think it's useful for us to look at that kind of projections, whether it's from DNV or from someone else, to have context. And so this particular slide is one of the graphs in that energy transition outlook from 2021 that shows the global energy demand projected out to 2050. And it's really interesting. You can see that despite population growth, and despite the fact that in the developing world, more and more people are connecting to the grid, however we define that, more and more people are moving into advanced technologies and being able to light their homes and heat and air condition their homes using something other than wood or some local resource. We see that the peak energy demand is going to level off about 2035 globally. And that's most people don't understand that. And we're doing that through lots of ways. One, buildings are more efficient, and we've seen that particularly in the last 10 years in the revolution in lighting in buildings, from incandescent and fluorescent to LED. We're seeing that in our vehicles as fuel mileage improves in our vehicles. And even in manufacturing, we're seeing demand begin to level off as we transition in many manufacturing processes from things like pneumatics to electric actuators for many processes. Or we see electrification of industrial vehicles like forklifts and those kinds of vehicles in manufacturing plants. So all these things are encouraging. And this Energy Outlook document or report goes into detail into why that's happening. Let me just go to the web browser here real quick. And this is the page. When you go follow the link for the 2021 report, their 2022 version should come out in the next few weeks. So there's an outlook, there's a pathway to net zero emissions, there are highlights, and then there are forecasts in various sectors of the economy. There's a technology progress report, how key energy transition technologies will develop. That's things like battery technology and so forth. So this is that company's view And it's just one view. It's an opinion. It's a projection. But I think it's important to understand where we're going. And that's important, I think, in discussions with clients as you talk to them about their own operations and how they can contribute to this transition. My personal view is that the transition is going to happen, and we can take advantage and take the lead, or we can be dragged kicking and screaming, but it's underway globally. So, any questions about that? Just to open that up for starters.
What would be the breadth of their data source?
They use many of the sources we're going to talk about here. They also use their own internal data. As I said, they're invested heavily in consulting. When I worked for them, I was involved in the business of managing utility rebate programs, utility incentive programs like Duke Energy's Smart Saver program. But we did that for utilities all over the country. I say we, it's my former company, but I've still sort of in that mindset. So we had our own internal data on specific projects that we were involved in tracking before and after energy use, after implementing energy conservation measures, like a lighting retrofit, or a whole building energy upgrade. We tracked our own data internally as well. So we did that all across all the sectors the company was involved in. So then there are global information sources. And so I don't know how much they invest in producing this document. On the one hand, it's an overhead exercise, but on the other hand, it's vital information for projecting your own future business model. So that's why the company does it. And it's worth checking out. Any other questions about the ETO?
If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, or you're welcome to. Any other questions right now? Okay.
I would just like to say that I'd like to get I can't read the links, so if you could put links in an email later so that we could access this, that would be great. This is Robert.
Yeah, we'll do. Actually, we can send out Kevin's entire presentation and in PDF format. The links will be hot.
Okay, very good. Yes, this is going to be a lot of me showing a page and then going to a link, so you can see what the pages look like. With that, we're going to move to the next source. There. Okay. Many of you have probably heard of the Energy Information Administration, which is an agency within the U.S. Department of Energy. EIA.gov is the website. I find it very useful in lots of ways. I wish I'd known about it 25 years ago and used it 25 years ago. It's really the United States basic energy information clearinghouse. There's all kinds of information in there. And one example, last summer, my wife and I took a road trip out west. We drove all the way to the West Coast, San Francisco, Seattle. We came back on Interstate 80, coming across from, through Nebraska and Iowa and into southern Illinois and back home. Driving through Iowa, if you drive from Omaha to Des Moines on Interstate 80, there's almost no place along that stretch of highway all the way across the state where you don't see a wind turbine. And so when we got back home, I said, well, I'm going to find out exactly how much electricity is generated by wind turbines in Iowa. And where you go to find that, you go to EIA.gov. And you can look up that information. Turns out that in 2020, over 60% of the electricity generated in Iowa came from wind turbines.
Oh,
Wow.
So that's just one way that this website and this data resource is useful. And here's their homepage, the U.S. Energy Information Administration. There's a search box, there's sources and uses, topics, geography, and it has U.S. data. And as you can see from the first line in the Today in Energy, you can see what's happening in China with electricity generation. So it's just incredible. And then there's crude oil futures prices. Crude oil yesterday, $84, or day before yesterday, $84 a barrel. Compared to what a couple months ago, $110, $120 a barrel. Retail gasoline price, $3.65, nationwide average. Weekly coal production. All this information's there. And you just pick through there and go figure out what you want to find out about. And again, it's a very useful place for information. Any questions about EIA?
Kevin, this is Bruce.
Yeah.
Since this is, I guess, what we would call a public website, we're free to use that information, or do we have to quote it, or how does that work?
Well, I think like with any document you're referencing, it's always good to cite the source of your data. But the information is public domain information. So
okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Good.
Yeah, it's public domain information. I mean, this is a U.S. government website. So
great, great info.
Hey, and I'll add too, I use this data sometimes as well, and you can download Excel spreadsheets with the actual, numerics in it, and there's even a lot more detail than visually what gets shown on the screen. Like there is a plethora of data as you dig into it. It's unbelievable.
Yes. And then you can use your Excel tools and Python and Power BI and all these other things that I know nothing about. Because like most of you, I started engineering school with a slide rule. So
marine biology?
Marine engineering. Yeah. So I understand the challenges of taking advantage of the era of big data. So anyway, but that's a great question. Thank you. So let's move on. The last item here on this list is Cvex, and that deserves its own slide. Cvex. Cvex is the Commercial Buildings Energy Consumption Survey. Some of you have probably used Cvex data in the past. It is a product developed by EIA where they hire contractors to go out and survey commercial building owners and managers. And by commercial, that really is talking about everything except 1 and 2 family residential, because there's even multifamily housing data in Cvex. So that's their definition of commercial. It's excellent for benchmarking. It comes out with average energy use intensity numbers. Energy use intensity is simply the annual energy use per square foot for a building. And so they break it down by types of buildings and regions of the country. So if you're doing an energy audit for a church in Waynesville, let's say, and you want to see how their energy use compares to similar churches in this part of the country, you can look that information up on Cvex, and it gives you a quick and dirty, yeah, you're doing okay, or no, you could probably do some improvements. That's the usefulness at a basic level of Cvex. Unfortunately, Cvex is kind of clunky in terms of how frequently it happens and how long it takes from doing the actual surveys to compiling and presenting the data to the public. Right now, the latest survey was started in 2018. And their website, let's go to the website. Control click. EIA.gov. We'll wait for the website to load.
Lickety split.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question while it's loading up.
Go ahead, Russ.
So if you were looking at churches, for instance, in there, do they break them down at all? Like if you're able to say, I'm looking at churches that have daycare during the week and stuff like that.
I think their stuff is pretty high level. I don't think it would break it down that much. Okay, so they have just changed. Oh, no, they haven't changed it. In March, they said we will release preliminary consumption expenditures data in August 22 from the 2018 survey. Okay, so that's one of the problems that could arise out of Cvex. This is not up to date. So on the other side of that, as building energy consumption continues to improve, if you take the data from 2018 and your client has an average EUI compared to 2018, you could say qualitatively that, that's really not very good, because this average is 4 years old and things are getting better. So you need to catch up. Okay. But it's a good website to go through and just poke around in and see what's in there, because there's a lot of information.
So we do have a chat question. Marshall was asking if you could compare the use of Cvex to the MECS system. And I'm not sure what that MECS system is. So Marshall, maybe you could chime in if you want to unmute.
It's a comparable survey for the manufacturing sector. It's useful at times if you can find the data, but because as I'm sure Kevin can explain, there's the commercial building and there's a certain definition of that type of building, but when you get into the manufacturing sector, it's a different animal. I found it useful at times. I just wish the data was more widely known, and I think it could be used for a comparable comparison of benchmarks.
I think I'm not familiar with MECS at all, so I would have to do a little research into that to see exactly how they present the data. In manufacturing in particular, energy use intensity is a different kind of benchmark, and it's an energy use per some unit of manufacturing output, however they might define that.
So I'll chime in with a question. Do we know what the sample size is for the Cvex universe?
The data's in there.
You know, like is it, if we go to churches, is there going to be 100 or 10 or,
well,
you know?
That information is available in the survey data.
Yeah.
So basically the answer is yes. They know, I don't know.
Okay.
I know where to find that information.
Yeah. And I'll throw out one other thing too. I think it's interesting to know that the Cvex data is there for like average energy use intensity, because the other place that we tend to look, maybe as a WRP team or some of us, is looking at Energy Star data and some of the profiles which have a lot of data in there, but you can't really drill down. So you have kind of aggregated data, and you know, like if you're in Energy Star, you know where you rank, but you're already kind of leading the pack.
Right.
So this, I think, provides an estimate of what's the overall, the global average versus the leading the pack average.
Right.
So I'll just throw that out.
Right. Okay. Any other questions about Cvex?
Yes, Kevin.
Yeah.
You mentioned geographic. I mean, can we drill down and get data for, say, a church in North Carolina or the Southeast or something?
I think that's regional.
I think it's regional.
I think it's regional, not.
But that would still be good.
Not state by state, but
maybe Southeast.
Maybe Southeast. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I don't think it's by climate zone.
Right.
But it is what it is, and I think the sample size is limited in a couple ways. One is it just costs so much to survey so many people, and then there's just some percentage of response to a request for data. You know, building managers have lots of important things to do other than respond to some survey from the government. So all those things fall into that, but it's useful information. Just wanted to share that with you. Energy, we talked about Energy Star. Terry just brought it up. That's something we're a lot more familiar with. The Energy Star, of course, sets qualified product standards as a better term than listing. We think, listing, we really talk about UL or some other safety listing. But for performance, in particular energy performance, Energy Star is a primary source of a qualified products list, as a most descriptive term, I think, for appliances, for lighting, particularly for lamps. And I have to tell my graduate students who are not technical that lamp is an engineering term for a bulb. And luminaire is an engineering term for a light fixture. So, we have those semantic challenges sometimes in our jargon compared to public understanding. Various types of equipment, including HVAC equipment, and there's Energy Star for buildings. And we just talked about building rating systems in my class, and we talked about LEED and Energy Star, which are the two primary rating systems in the United States. And sort of had a conversations about LEED has taken prominence in the commercial sector, while Energy Star is predominant in the 1 and 2 family residential sector. For the whole building. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I think part of the reason is that 15, 20 years ago, maybe, the Army Corps of Engineers and the Naval Facilities Command both established LEED as their standard for new construction. And so that drove a lot of commercial construction toward LEED rather than toward Energy Star. So, and there's lots of interesting philosophical debates over which is better and so forth and so on. We're not going to get into that. That's a different topic for a different day. But there is an Energy Star for buildings, and they have the Portfolio Manager, and some of you have probably worked with Portfolio Manager and benchmarking your buildings that way. So. The other thing that Energy Star has is, back to the manufacturing sector, is the Energy Star Challenge for Industry, which is another program under the Energy Star purview. And the other interesting thing about Energy Star is that it's not under the U.S. Department of Energy. It's an EPA program. So. Most of us probably know that, but my students don't. So we'll go to the Energy Star website, and they do a nice job. You can say find products, there's product finders, there's all kinds of searches. We use the downloadable Excel file every day for LED lighting when we were qualifying products for utility rebates. And people ask me all the time, what's the best light bulbs you can buy? I say, well, anything's on the Energy Star list is pretty good.
Quick question, Kevin. How does the Energy Star rating system for lamps and luminaires compare with the other workhorse DLC? They really, and again, it's been 3 or 4 years since I've dealt specifically with that, but in my experience, Energy Star typically is evaluating lamps, and DLC typically is evaluating luminaires. And there may be some crossover in that, but that's generally what I've seen in my experience. If you're buying a light bulb at Lowe's, it's going to be Energy Star listed. If you're buying 2x2 LED lay-ins, those are going to be DLC listed, or on DLC's qualified product list. That's my experience with it. Any other questions? I'm just going to click over here on the industrial plants, because there you can see the plant certification, challenge for industry, the treasure hunt. Those are all focused on manufacturing. And I don't know how much WRP deals in manufacturing, but it's a lot. But there's a lot of useful information in there related to manufacturing.
And I think that does overlap with DOE, because Treasure Hunt is like a DOE program, and so is like Better Plants and Better Buildings.
Better Buildings is EERE, which is under.
Oh, that's EERE.
That's Department of Energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there probably is overlap, but Energy Star is under the umbrella of EPA. Yeah. Okay. We'll move right along. Everybody. Okay, the ERE, there it is, the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office within the Department of Energy has its Better Buildings Initiative. And they have programs, they have training and webinars, they have resources for financing, and they have some great email lists. You can, if you're interested in energy conservation and energy programs on tribal lands. They have an email list you can sign up for, and you get these emails. I love it. That's a primary way that I use just to keep up with some industry trends. Is going on their website and subscribing to a bunch of emails, as if we don't have enough emails already,
Right.
cluttering our inbox. But I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. Let's go to that website. There it is. There's explore by topic, solution types, implementation models, showcase projects, toolkits, technology information, financing, decarbonization. That's a big deal. Where you're talking about decarbonization or electrification. Those are two sides of the same coin, basically. Resilience, renewables, combined heat and power, and even COVID-19. So there's events and webinars. You can get on an email list that will notify you of webinars. So if there's a topic you're interested in, and again, this is free stuff. This is the government program. So there's all kinds, and you can subscribe here, and that is where you go to this big, long checklist of email topics that you can subscribe to. It's a great resource, I think, especially for the built environment. I mean, it's incredible. We're just clicking on all kinds of stuff. Any questions about EERE? Hearing no objections. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go into another interesting source of data. And you think, well, why do I need to know economic data? Well, I think it's pretty interesting stuff. And, you know, from broad topics like the consumer price index, the prices of particular commodities, and trade data, and employment data, and all kinds of detailed economic data that comes from a variety of sources like the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Department of Commerce or the Department of Energy or EPA, or all these sources. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, a number of years ago, set up a central repository for this kind of economic data, and it's called FRED. The Federal Reserve Economic Data, FRED. It's very comprehensive. Let's just go take a quick look at FRED. There you go. 818,000 U.S. and international series. Lots of historic data from 109 sources. Is all compiled here at this one website where you can go real GDP, interest rate, M2, money supply, federal funds rate, CPI, GDP, inflation. It's all there. And it can show you graphically, interactively, and you can download the actual data in spreadsheet form so you can manipulate and slice and dice however your heart desires. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's really interesting. And I share it with my students at Lenore Ryan because they're doing research papers where this kind of information is useful. And it's useful to all of us, I think. And it's been in place since 1991, this online repository of data. Let's just click on one just to see. Let's look at GDP. Trending search term, GDP, gross domestic product. This is billions of dollars quarterly, seasonally adjusted annual rate. and it goes and it works and it gives you a little graph.
Whoa.
And then it actually has these shaded areas. Those are recessions. So you can see the COVID-19 dip in GDP. And now it's going back up $24.3 trillion. And then you can download that data and slice and dice. You can interactively change the graph. There's a 10-year view. It's pretty cool. Go play with Fred. Any questions? All right, we'll keep going. All right, everybody knows about Ashrae, right? I don't have to spend any time on Ashrae. Do I?
Yeah, you probably should. It's fine.
Ashrae, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. Many of us had at least somewhere in our office library back 20 years ago the four volumes of the Ashrae Handbook, and we probably had somewhere in the office a copy of various standards that Ashrae produces. And Ashrae also produces some excellent design guides. I use the Ashrae Green Guide as a text for my graduate students. There's a high performance buildings guideline that Ashrae publishes. But the biggest thing are the handbooks and the standards. Some of you may be out in your work, and some client may ask you, well, what does it mean to be comfortable? Well, Ashrae Standard 55.1 tells you what it means to be comfortable.
Oh, boy.
So you can go to the authority, the experts, and say, this is what it means to be comfortable. And if somebody says, wow, it's cold in this room, and you can say, well, the temperature is 71 and the relative humidity is 50%. According to Ashrae, you're comfortable. So Ashrae, of course, is a great resource. Their products are sometimes pricey. Membership does have its privileges with Ashrae, so you get some member discounts on things. There are some free resources there, but it governs a lot of what we do as engineers. Ashrae and IECC are important in developing Ashrae Standard 90.1, which is the model energy code for, again, everything except 1 and 2 family residential. So we're all familiar with 90.1. And then there's ventilation standard 62. They've even published a standard for maintenance practices and policies to mitigate Legionella. And they also did some excellent work. Bill Banfleth, who is an Ashrae distinguished lecturer and professor at Penn State University, and a mentor to my friend Amy Musser here in Asheville, if you know Amy. He and some others were influential in Ashrae's work during COVID-19 to publish guidelines for ventilation, particularly related to COVID-19. And those resources are on their website. Let's just click real quick. So if we go to, figure out where it is. It probably isn't it. Oh, there's the COVID-19 resources. core recommendations, FAQ, one-page guidance document. But they did documents for different classes of buildings, like for public schools or for office buildings. The kinds of things that said, run your systems with a 100% outside air to the extent possible, and start purging with outside air 2 to 4 hours before occupancy. A number of concrete recommendations for building owners and managers was part of what Ashrae was doing during COVID-19, during the height of the pandemic. So it's very good. Guidance for designing duct systems. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that Ashrae does. Any questions about Ashrae?
In this green guide, can you show us where that is? Is that a green guide per sector?
No, it's a book.
Okay.
Technical resources. We go to the bookstore. Well, let's see. Anyway, I have it available through the Lenore Ryan Library online. So buy it. There's the high performance building guide. The high performance building is probably a good resource. It's a 270-page text for $132. Designing, constructing, operating sustainable commercial buildings. So that was published in 2019. It's fairly current. So you can download a PDF, you can buy the book, or you can get both.
So, and I'll throw out there too, if you all see some kind of resource that you need or we need as a WRP team, let me know. We can purchase some of these. We have purchased some Ashrae guides in the past for certain folks that were using them. There were a series of guides that were like 30 and 50% better than code guides that were done with Ashrae for schools. And a lot of those things have great standards in there that we can reference with our clients for, new purchases and things like that. So just let us know.
Yeah. I would also recommend looking at the Ashrae Advanced Energy Design Guides. They have schools and offices now for net zero, and those are free. Those are free downloads. And they have actually case studies where a lot of schools and offices have done, put solar on and been net zero.
And the other thing I'll say about Ashrae, and one of my favorite features of Ashrae membership, is the Ashrae Journal every month, and in particular the column on building science that's written by Joe Stiebrick. If you know anything about building science, the building envelope, Joe Stiebrick is the guru. And his columns, which appear almost every month in the Ashrae Journal, the first place I go to, because they're just absolutely hilarious.
He's a comedian, too.
He is a comedian. Anybody else read Joe Stiebrick out there, you know what I'm talking about. Really good. So, and I assume you have a couple of Ashrae members at least on the team. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to share those resources. Okay. U.S. Green Building Council, that's the group that administers the LEED certification and LEED rating systems. Certification for individuals and professionals and ratings for buildings. We talked just this week in my class the big difference between Energy Star and LEED, and you all know the answer to this. It may be on my test that I give to my students. Energy Star is energy. LEED is energy plus a lot of other stuff, which among some is a criticism of LEED, in that, in the opinion of some, LEED does not focus enough on energy. So,
Energy and environmental design. So
yeah.
It covers the gamut.
It covers the gamut. So I think the criticism is in the proportion of points awarded for different aspects of the building.
Right.
You know, like get 2 points for a bike rack when you're on the interstate and nobody can ride a bike anywhere within 5 miles of your building.
Right.
You know, and I say that in jest. That's a caricature, but it's, I think, speaks a little truth.
But it is, you know, as we look at carbon emission reductions, as you look at those efforts on embedded carbon and other concepts like, you know, how much carbon does the recycling save, those life cycle numbers are huge, really. So you really have to kind of think about, well, the transportation system is, you know, gosh, it's a third of our carbon source, right? So if we can encourage bikes, or if we're buying supplies within a 100-mile radius, what does that mean transportation-wise? So it's all pretty interconnected, and I think we're learning more about that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here's another thing related to electricity generation in the United States. And I went to EIA and I pulled out these numbers from downloading a spreadsheet and doing a little slice and dice. You can think of electricity generation in the United States as a pie with 5 pieces. Okay? 1 piece is coal, 5 equal pieces. One piece, about 20% is coal. 1 piece, about 20% is nuclear. 1 piece, about 20%, is renewables, including hydro, wind, solar, and what I call cats and dogs, like tidal power. Right. Or when I was at Annapolis, I did a report for a class about a plant in Baltimore that burned household trash, 1,000 tons a day of garbage, to produce steam for Baltimore's municipal steam distribution, inner city Baltimore. You know, cats and dogs. And then there's 2 pieces left, right? What's that? The 2 pieces are natural gas.
It was a trick. It's a question.
Well, there's 5 equal pieces, right? But it's a simple way to look at the snapshot right now of electrical generation in the United States. And what's happening is coal continues, their piece gets smaller and smaller. The renewables piece keeps getting bigger and bigger. Natural gas, according to the Energy Transition Outlook, DNV, that we started with, natural gas is about peaked. So, and nuclear is what it is and is going to remain about the same. So, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, any questions about LEED? I'm not going to go to the USGBC website. That's another criticism of LEED, is that the administrative costs for rating a building are pretty high. So, compared to Energy Star, which is free, except for paying your engineer who goes into portfolio manager and does the work. You still got to do that work for LEED, but then you got to pay LEED to review everything. All right. Here's one that a lot of mechanical engineers or marine engineers like me don't pay much attention to. But it's pretty important. The Illuminating Engineering Society Why is it important? They do the standards that say in a school classroom, the light level on the desk should be 35 to 50 foot candles. That's pretty important to energy use. Just how much light is enough. And again, their handbook's pretty pricey, but there are ways to get the basic information of their light standards table. And you can go as detailed as you want to in the lighting design. It's a fascinating field for this old mechanical engineer, basically, to get into lighting design. But we dealt with that in the rebate world because we wanted customers to reduce energy use and reward them for that, but we didn't want to sacrifice light level. We were going back and saying, well, IES says you need this. You can't go lower than that. Any questions about lighting? Well, let's not go that broad. About this resource. We talked a minute ago about DLC. Again, they have a qualified product list that is for LED lighting and mostly luminaires. Although I think some of the bigger, like street lights might be DLC. I don't remember. It's been a while since I looked at that. But that's a luminaire. Street light would be a luminaire. So. But there were also some of the like screw in to replace HID street lights or high wattage HID lights that may be DLC instead of energy.
So what would be on their website? Do they actually have lists of particular products, or is it just
yes,
their standards of how they test?
They have standards for listing.
Okay.
And they have a qualified product list.
Okay.
Okay.
And also on the DLC is pretty neat because you can search by, many different factors. You can look for a particular product, or you can just look in a particular, species of luminaire that you want. So it's a huge Excel sheet that you can sort and dice. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is good. We were using, when I was doing the rebate work, we were using DLC's QPL and Energy Star's QPL almost every day because we had to verify that products that customers installed were on one of these lists. Okay. I noticed the last lighting there, they have a QPL for network lighting controls. That's an entirely different world that may be worth exploring in a training session someday. And one of my former D&V colleagues actually lives in Micaville, works from his home that he bought there. He moved here from Columbus, Ohio, and he is a subject matter expert on network lighting control. I'll give you his contact information and reach out to him as well for you.
Okay, that'd be great.
If he might be a resource. But that's another entirely different world for doing things like wireless control of individual lamps to control light level and color temperature. Mm-hmm. And other things. I mean, it's really pretty, Jetson kind of stuff. The days of the old spring-wound time clock to control lighting are gone. Any questions? you guys are all familiar, and ladies, are all familiar with the North Carolina Energy Code. It's based on Ashrae 90.1, although we're one or two versions behind the latest 90.1. Again, that's a public policy perspective that is worthy of some discussion. We all understand that the code has both prescriptive measures and performance measures, with the trend going more and more toward performance measures. We want the building to perform rather than to say you have to do X, 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 and X. That's sort of the trend. And as I tell my students, the code describes the worst possible building you can legally build. I mean, that's a true statement. A statement of fact. Building a code building, you're not doing anything very exceptional. Even in North Carolina, in our political climate, the General Assembly recognized a decade or so ago that our state-owned buildings need to be 30% better than code. So that's maybe a commentary on what the code really means. Anyway, and one of the interesting things, the U.S. Department of Energy, as states amend or adopt new versions of the Energy Code, the Department of Energy runs energy models of those code buildings and then compares that performance to the latest 90.1 standard to see where your state stands compared to the latest Ashrae 90.1. So that's an interesting exercise and pretty enlightening. Of course, our code is administered by the Office of the State Fire Marshal, who is the insurance commissioner. And the Codes and Standards Office does a pretty good job down here. And there's also the Building Code Council. Some of you probably know Bridget Herring, who now works for the city of Asheville. Bridget's on the Building Code Council, and she's an energy expert. She's a resource locally as well. And she could probably, she has done that for my classes in the past, talked about the code, the 90.1 gap, and sort of the big picture issues that come to the Building Code Council. And that's some interesting stuff.
Yeah, Terry, how about this candidate for one of our keynote lectures?
Oh, yeah, that might be a great possibility. And we've worked with Bridget on some assessments and some electrification questions and things like that, because they have some goals.
Bridget's a great resource.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And she is now the City of Asheville Sustainability Director and not just the energy manager, so she's moved up her role in a few months ago.
Yeah. And does a great job presenting. She's very good. Much better than I. Okay. Back in the manufacturing world, ISO 50001, we're all familiar with ISO generally in terms of quality processes and management processes in organizations. Well, several years ago, they developed continuous improvement organizational strategies for energy performance and put that into ISO 50001. So it's a way to drive both organizational structure and organizational processes toward continuous energy performance improvements. In the same kind of structure that you would for ISO 9001 or 14001. okay? And there's a path to certification so that organizations can be certified ISO 50001. As I was getting out of the utility rebate world, utilities were looking at that as another opportunity to provide incentives to their customers. Customers who engage in that process and obtain ISO certification could receive utility incentives for that.
Not sure that's happened.
Well, I'm sure it's not happened at Duke, but it has happened in other parts of the country, particularly DTE and Consumers Energy in Michigan, where it's highly manufacturing driven, the economy with the automakers. They have gone down that path for ISO 50001. So that's another way to frame the opportunity for your clients in manufacturing. ISO 50001.
Is there perhaps a high price tag? Evaluating for certification.
You would have to. I think an organization would have to hire a consultant who is approved by ISO as a certifier.
Yeah. So, we work with a lot of facilities that are 14,001, and they use a third-party registrar to validate that they're following the system. But these standards do have a self-certification clause, so you could just claim you're following it, and you have a management system to do that. But like for folks to be, if it's a corporate mandate, they might say, no, we're going to use a third party to register us. There's probably like less than 20 manufacturers registered to the standard in North Carolina today. But we've been working with Advanced Energy, one of our partners in Raleigh, and they run a cohort program, and there's it's called 50001 Ready, and it kind of walks you through the steps. And so that's a great program that if we have any clients and they're interested in stepping up, or they have to do this because of the corporate standard, that's a great program to tie them into. And this really pushes all of energy management and meeting goals. So yeah. So it's a good topic. We've had some webinars on that, and there's something called strategic energy performance, which is like another level even beyond ISO 50001.
Strategic energy management is another phrase that's thrown out there.
So all good
within this kind of framework. So, any other comments about that? Some others that might have had some experience with this.
Buddy.
Cool. Everybody's about to go to sleep. Okay. Here's the desire. Anybody looked at desire? I see Terry nodding over here. That is the database of state energy incentives. It basically is a compilation of utility and state government incentives by state. And it provides useful links to the utilities and their incentive programs. So that's the usefulness of desire. We're here in North Carolina, so we should have Smart Saver bookmarked on our web browsers, but maybe not. Okay. So you can find policies and incentives by state. North Carolina, renewable and energy efficiency. There's a history. There's North Carolina's Renewable Portfolio Standard, which was Senate Bill 3 of August of 2007. Many of us cite that by memory. We've been involved in that stuff. That came out of EPAC of 2005, which required states to establish renewable energy portfolio standards, so forth. So you got State Energy Program, North Carolina Green Power. There's all this, how to go solar, 99 programs. There you go. and you can learn about those. Some of those are, it also includes the federal, there's the one tax deduction for business organizations. And I got involved in that through a tax accountant in Charlotte, working with a manufacturer. We did a lighting upgrade, and it required an engineering certification. I'm a licensed engineer. And so 1079 tax deduction. Anyway, you know, if you look in the territory of South River EMC, wherever that is, you can find out about their programs. So, you know, in this part of the state, and I know we've got people all over the state tuned in.
Right.
But here, you know, you have Haywood EMC and Blue Ridge EMC and
yeah,
so forth. So, and Duke and Dominion's Gas as well. So that's a quick way to find that stuff is through Desire. Okay? Any questions? Awesome. And locally, and again, I'm focused here in Asheville, but there are similar organizations across the state. We have the Greenbelt Alliance here, which is primarily focused on residential construction, but many of the players in the energy efficiency and green building world in Asheville are involved in Greenbelt Alliance. Shameless plug for my son-in-law and his company called Southlight Builders, which is a residential construction company. They build homes focused on passive solar design, including my house near Lake Junaluska, which is net zero energy.
wow.
So I kind of try to walk the walk in my own life, and actually have reserved a F-150 Lightning.
Nice.
I hope I live long enough to actually order it. So, Ashrae has chapters. The chapter that covers Western North Carolina is in Greenville, and they have monthly meetings. Other chapters across the state in Charlotte and the Triad and the Triangle have meetings. The president-elect, I think, somebody correct me, I think she's president-elect, is Ginger Scoggins from Greensboro, president-elect of Ashrae. So, or High Point, or wherever Ginger's from, Winston-Salem. Ashrae is pretty strong in North Carolina. We have our MS in Sustainability Studies program here at Lenore-Rhine. And I mention that because students, to complete the degree, have to complete a capstone project. And the project, one of the project requirements is community engagement. So there may be opportunity for WRP or your clients to partner with a graduate student in a capstone project. And so that's why I bring that up. And then the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association is another organization I have been involved in, which is really a public policy advocacy group based in Raleigh, and but there are others as well. So I just brought those to your attention, and their links are in the slides. So. That's the last one. That's it. That's my last slide. I normally put another slide up there that says, with some funny graphic that says questions. So
yes,
I'll just smile real goofy and say questions.
Hey, do you want to go back to our view of AmView? So so we've got an opportunity to do any follow-up questions for Kevin? Who would like to chime in?
You probably have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you have to unmute. can't see the mutes up there. So I'll add another resource. There's also the Association of Energy Engineers, which is a good group, and they've got chapters in Raleigh and I think Charlotte, you know, our major metropolitan areas in North Carolina. But they're a good group of folks. Members sometimes are, you know, energy managers, so they're kind of on that management end of reducing energy. So that's something else to look towards. We just made a presentation to their Raleigh chapter about WRP, hoping to recruit some retirees, but so.
Would you share with us some of the features of your Lake Junaluska home that allow you to achieve?
Sure. Well, we built the home. We moved in about 8.5 years ago. The main feature is that we have great southern exposure. Our front of the house, or long axis of the house, faces about 15 degrees east of true south. So that would be 165 degrees on your compass. I'm an old Navy navigator, so I talk in those terms. We have lots of south-facing windows. The windows are triple pane casement windows. So triple pane, of course, just simply increases the R value of the window assembly. Casement means they actually seal against infiltration, compared to double hung windows, which are notoriously leaky. So that's a couple features. We're a nominal 6-inch concrete slab on grade. So we don't have a crawl space with all the, I'm a personal opinion, crawl spaces ought to be outlawed. You want to do a basement, that's fine, but a crawl space is just build your slab on grade. We have 2x6 exterior wood stud walls with, I guess that's just R19 craft face fiberglass batten insulation. Nothing fancy there, but we do have an interior air barrier, polyethylene air barrier. So we did a blower door test. I'd have to look up the numbers on the blower door test. But, Matt Vandy, Amy Mustard's partner and husband, came and did the blower door test and the HERS rating. It's like R60 blown insulation in the attic. Of course, all this, you know, slab edge insulation and all that stuff now is pretty standard code requirement stuff. We have ground source heat pump. We have a heat pump water heater, an air-cooled heat pump water heater. We have an induction cooktop. And no matter what anybody else tells you, induction's better than gas. No matter what anybody else says, I'll argue with anybody on that point. Everything else pretty much standard Energy Star appliances, LED lighting throughout. And we have a 5.4 nominal kW photovoltaic system on the roof. So that we started out at HERS 43, which is considered net zero ready. HERS is a home energy rating system. And so we started at net zero ready, and about 4.5 years ago, we installed the PV panels. So we went from a $70 electric bill to $16.49 a month. Whether Duke needs
service fee.
The service fee, whether Duke needs it or not. So, and we're on a well. We use a well for drinking water. So our only utility and a septic system. So our only utility cost, well, besides internet and that kind of stuff that you have to have, is the electric bill.
Great.
So it's net zero.
All right. Hey, well, so we're getting near the end of our 90 minutes. Any other questions for Kevin before we wrap up? We will post a recording of this as well as Kevin's slides so that you can utilize all those hot links up on our SharePoint site and send everyone a link here who in the program. So any other words?
Well, I would just say, if you want to hang around, I'll hang around a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. And if you have feedback about what we did here this morning, just send that to Terry, and we hope to, I think we're talking about a couple more topics to talk about this fall.
Right.
And I certainly want to get your feedback so I can make this worth your time. So I appreciate you taking your time this morning.
Yeah, and we appreciate all the great work you all are doing as energy assessors and working with WRP on all kinds of issues too. So thank you for being here and learning as well. And thank you, Kevin, for excellent overview. We hope to have you back and keep this trend of these educational opportunities out there for everyone. It's always a lot to learn.
Thank you so much.
Anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks too. Really appreciate it. I think it's great to sit around and have this discussion, and refresher for some of us and new material for others, and look forward to other sessions this fall.
Okay.
Thank y'all. Have a good day.
Yeah.